10 years have passed since the incident, and the kids have grown up. "Mom, don't forget tomorrow is Grandpa's anniversary," said my independent daughter, munching on bread as she dashed out of the house. "I'm off, Mom. Don't forget about tomorrow," reminded my responsible son, now a working adult. Our family has been watched over by my father, who left this world 5 years ago. My children became my support, helping me take care of him. The conflict with Mary, caring for my father with dementia. I regret having my son and daughter, still so young, go through such tough times due to adult complications. Maybe they just wanted to play freely with their friends. I thought this, watching the grown backs of my 2 children. My name is Karen. At 30, I married Jim, my senior at work, after a grand romance. We had a son and a daughter and even acquired our dream home. I believed our humble but happy days as a family of 4, with my gentle and kind husband, would last forever. But then, our happy times didn't last long. Shortly after our daughter's first birthday, both my husband's father and my mother passed away, and 2 years later, my beloved husband departed for heaven. I was 45 when my husband passed. My son Robert, just starting 6th grade, and my 4-year-old daughter Betty, attending a childcare center. How would I raise these children alone? The grief of losing my husband and the surge of anxiety overwhelmed me. Yet, I resolved to stay strong and protect my children, vowing never to cry in front of them. To this, Mary spoke heartlessly. "How can you look so calm after losing your husband? I pity the child who married such a heartless person. Since the beginning of our marriage, she took my precious son away." Mary despised me. But those were not the words for a widow who had just lost her beloved husband. When my father-in-law passed away, Mary, still in mourning, carelessly went on a vacation. "I can't cancel now." That was her excuse. Unbelievable. What a cold-hearted person. Then, after a while, I returned to my part-time job and received a phone call. "Karen, you've been through a lot." It was Ellie, living across from my parents' house. She occasionally checked on my father living alone since my mother's passing, and rushed over when my husband died. "Actually, I need to talk to you about your dad." "Huh?" The sudden change in Ellie's tone made me anxious about my father. Sensing my fear, she reassured me. "It's nothing serious. I know you're busy, Karen, but do visit Dad sometimes, and come to my place too." Ellie's voice returned to its usual brightness. Though she said it was nothing serious, I couldn't sleep at all that night, anxious. The next day, unable to shake off my worries, I entrusted my young daughter to my son and visited Ellie's house. "Could it be my father might have dementia?" said Ellie. My father's expressions and behavior resembled her father's when he had dementia. My 74-year-old father, retired but happily engaged in gardening and vegetable growing, laughed off my suggestion to live together after my mother's passing. "I'm not ready to be a burden yet." My father laughed. I couldn't accept Ellie's words, having seen my unchanged father at my husband's funeral. Considering how strong Dad was, it's understandable for Karen to be shocked. Even I thought it wouldn't happen to my parents. But Karen, it's a path everyone eventually takes. Saying so, she comforted me, gently petting my crying back. A few days later, accompanied by Ellie, I consulted the city office about my father. Following a medical examination, he was diagnosed with dementia. Of course, It was a shock. Yet, standing still and worrying won't change the fact that it's dementia. I must accept reality and move forward. Whether she knew how I felt or not, it's a 30-minute leisurely walk from here, a perfect walking route. Mary, who had walked from her house, intruded into ours uninvited. Then, in the kitchen, "What's the special dinner for tonight?" She rummaged around, making herself at home. "Ah, yes, I thought of making pizza, the kid's favorite." "How ordinary," she muttered, sitting down, watching me cook. Mary, it's getting dark outside." "Fine, I'll settle for pizza today." "What? She plans to eat and leave? What's the matter? Any complaints?" "No, not at all. Mary, living with her son-in-law and daughter-in-law since her husband passed, knew Jane worked full-time and often came home late. The kids are eating out today. Once in a while, we need to give the couple some time alone." Then Mary finished off the ordinary pizza I made. "I'm so full I can't move. Karen, can you drive me home?" "Sure." 2 days later, Mary showed up again. "What a charmless child. Wonder who he takes after," she remarked sarcastically. My son, never warming up to Mary, might have seen through her, having heard her badmouth me and my parents since he was young. Pretending not to hear her, he left the house. Recently, he has been talking less to me, maybe because of his age. After my father was diagnosed with dementia, I consulted my brother, who lived apart. But he was indifferent. "I can help with money, but I can't take care of him, so you handle it." That was his only response. I had no choice but to take care of him. "I don't want to move out of my house." My father stubbornly refused, but I somehow persuaded him to move in with me. One day, I received a call from Mary. "Karen, I hear you're living with your dad now." "Oh, I hadn't told anyone yet." "Yes, well informed, aren't you? You can live with Dad if you want, but remember, you're our daughter-in-law." "Yes." "You haven't done anything daughter-in-law-like till now, so you'll have to take care of me now." "Oh, but don't worry, just making dinner and delivering it to my house is enough. If I ever need caregiving, I'll ask my younger son's wife. I can't imagine what you'd do to me. Oh, scary." I couldn't say anything back and had to comply with Mary's demands. Then, a new life began with the 4 of us, including my father. I thought I could manage as Dad would use day services on weekdays, and I only needed to care for him on evenings and weekends. But it was harder than I imagined. My part-time job, caring for the kids and Dad, plus delivering meals to Mary. It was more challenging than I thought. I woke up at 4 a.m. and didn't sleep until past midnight. As soon as I hit the bed, I fell asleep. Why do I have to go through all this alone? I can't trouble others. I chose this path myself. These thoughts drove me further into despair. And then an incident occurred. Late at night, everyone asleep, I returned from the shower to find... My father standing, head down, in front of the toilet. "What are you doing here?" He had peed in the hallway, not making it to the toilet in time. "Come on, why here? Even 4-year-old Betty can go by herself. You're so much trouble." I yelled at him, unable to understand his behavior as his symptoms worsened, and took out my frustration on him. Father looked down, apologetic. I changed his pants and put him back to bed. Why did I speak so harshly? Why? Tears wouldn't stop as I lay in bed. but I must have been exhausted because I fell asleep. Waking up in the middle of the night, I checked on my father. Oh, no way. He, who feared the dark and always slept with the table lamp on, was not in his bed. Maybe he's in the bathroom? No, he's not there. I searched the entire house, but he was nowhere to be found. Could it be? One window on the first floor was open. He must have gone outside. In a rush, I threw a jacket over my pajamas, grabbed my mobile phone and Dad's jacket, and headed for the door. Mom? Turning around to the voice, I saw my son rubbing his sleepy eyes. Mom, Grandpa's sleeping in my room. Oh, really? Relieved by my son's words, I slumped to the floor, drained of strength. Peeking into my son's room, I saw Dad curled up small like a child, sleeping peacefully in my son's bed. I'm sorry, Dad. And my son, sharing the same blanket, quickly fell back asleep. The next day, right after coming back from school, my son approached me. Mom, Grandpa seemed like he wanted to go back to his own house. Huh? He told me about last night. Let's take him home. We can live there with him. Robert, I'll help out, Mom, so you don't have to struggle alone anymore. I'll take good care of Grandpa. My son, who had always adored my father since he was little, had been concerned about Dad after Mom passed away and often visited him. I had thought he was still just a kid. Then I made up my mind. Let's sell this house and live in my childhood home. The decision was made quickly. I started renovating our old house to make it comfortable for Dad. Of course, the money for this came from my brother. I also began to tidy up the house we were living in. Karen, what do you think you're doing? Mary, having caught wind of the news, arrived in a car driven by my sister-in-law, Jane. But that's strange. How did Mary know? Jane wouldn't have told her. It must be this little one's doing. Looking at my daughter, she covered her mouth with both hands, looking flustered. No doubt. Mary must have bribed her with candy to get the information. Well, it can't be helped. She's only 4 after all. The fault lies with cunning Mary. Yes, I'm selling this house to live with Dad at my childhood home. Selling this house? What do you mean? That's the house my son built. How dare you sell it? So that's it. You plan to rebuild your childhood home with the money from selling this house, right? You think you can make a fortune now that you don't have to pay the mortgage since my son is gone. Mary rattled off. No, that's not it. My brother said he would cover all the costs. The money from selling the house will be used for my children's future. I believe my husband would have done the same if he were alive. He was that kind of kind-hearted person. I said firmly, leaving Mary unable to respond. She turned to Jane for help. Jane, you heard her, right? She's talking back to me, Mary, her mother-in-law. Called by Mary in a pleading voice, Jane said, Mary, I actually think Karen is admirable. Working alone while raising 2 kids is hard enough. And now she's also caring for Dad. Not many can do that. And how Karen uses the money from selling the house is none of your business. From now on, please take care of yourself without troubling Karen. Jane spoke up, not backing down from Mary. This seemed to make Mary concede, as if to say she had no other choice. Maybe Jane is right, she said, trying to laugh it off. Serves her right. I had anticipated this and had already discussed everything with Jane. Then Jane shared an interesting story. Mary, living with her son-in-law's family, had been cooking dinner for them, coming home late from work. The food was so terrible, it made me dizzy. I never want to eat it again. Jane's expression when she said this was unforgettable. Apparently, Mary was never good at household chores, and her husband used to do the cooking. After that terrible meal, the son's family started eating separately from Mary. "Karen, leave it to me." Jane promised to support my decision to live in my childhood home. Soon, the renovation was completed, and we moved in successfully. I felt sorry for my son, as the commute to school became longer, but he said, "It's totally fine," and began to talk to me more openly. With my son's help, I found more time and felt relieved after opening up to others about Dad's dementia. I naturally became kinder to Dad. While helping him get dressed as usual, "Thank you for always taking care of me." Dad bowed his head to me and smiled. It seems he thinks I am a helper taking care of him, forgetting I am his daughter. Of course, I felt sad, but it had been a long time since I saw Dad smiling like this. That was what mattered most to me. "Hello, Karen. How have you been?" One day, Mary called. I couldn't help but sigh. I had just recently gotten relief from Mary's stress, thanks to my sister-in-law. "Yes, I've been very well. How about you, Mary?" "Nothing much has changed. How is Dad? Is his forgetfulness getting worse?" "Oh? Why would Mary care about my father?" "Yes, he's doing well. It varies from day to day. He seems to remember things from the past, but not so much recently." "Is that so? Maybe I should pay him a visit sometime." "No, that would be troublesome." "No, that's not necessary. Your thoughts are more than enough." "Oh, just thoughts? Maybe I'll send some flowers then." "Huh? That's not what I meant. Sometimes conversations with Mary turn into such odd exchanges. Anyway, I'll come by tomorrow." Saying that, I hung up the phone. The next day, having a day off, I decided to visit Mary briefly. As I neared my in-laws' house, a neighbor signaled me to stop. "What's the matter?" "I heard about Dad, that he was dementia, and you've moved back to your childhood home." "Yes?" "No doubt, Mary must have spread the word." "But that's admirable of you. Some people would just put him in a facility. But you're doing great. It's not easy." I was expecting a snide remark, but that wasn't it. "Let me know if you need anything. We should all help each other in times like these. And don't worry about that gossiper. Just ignore her." She laughed. The gossiper? Right. I had completely forgotten. Mary isn't very well regarded in the neighborhood. A neighbor at my father-in-law's funeral had quietly told me. "It must be hard with Mary around. She's such a worry." She secretly told me about Mary. I remembered how they called Mary the gossiper for always sticking her nose into others' business and exaggerating stories. "Oh, Karen, you're here?" Perhaps hearing voices or just by intuition, Mary came out of the house. "See you then." The neighbor quickly went back inside, as if not wanting any involvement with Mary. "What were you two talking about?" Mary always needs to know who's talking to whom in her absence. I thought it would be troublesome to go out with her any longer. "Sorry, Mary. I have to go pick up my daughter. See you." I waved with a smile and drove off. "Robert, I'm off to work. Take care of Grandpa and Betty, okay? Call me if anything happens." I handed my emergency mobile phone to my son and left for work. During work, my phone vibrated in my pocket. Answering the phone, "Mom, something's wrong with Grandpa. Please come home quickly." My son sounded panicked. I felt it was serious without asking for details. "Understood, I'm on my way." I explained the situation to my co-workers and headed home. Approaching the house, I saw a police car parked in the nearby vacant lot. Oh, what? No way. At the front door, Ellie and my daughter, who was clinging to her and crying, stood. Karen, it's terrible. Go to that room quickly. Huh? Entering the room, I saw Dad cowering behind my son in a corner. Ah, Rolla, you're back. This woman. She did something terrible to your daughter. This woman. Dad, thinking I was his wife, pointed accusingly at Mary, who was sitting pale-faced. A police officer stood next to Mary. I didn't do anything. Henry suddenly attacked me. Mary was ranting. No, Grandpa did nothing wrong. My son retorted, visibly shaken. You can relax now that Mom's here. Tell us honestly what you saw and heard. The officer encouraged my son to recount what happened from the time I left for work until the police arrived. Let's recreate my son's story. Ah, Grandma. Mary unexpectedly visited our house where my son, daughter, and my father were. Hello, Robert. Betty, long time no see. Have you been well? Yes. Oh, that's right. Betty, here's some pocket money. Go buy some sweets with your brother. I'll look after Grandpa. My daughter, taking the money from Mary, pulled her brother outside. Come on, big brother. Let's hurry and buy some candy. Betty, I forgot something. Wait at Ellie's next door. Saying this, my son left his sister with Ellie and returned home. Peeking through the door gap, he saw, Hello, do you recognize me? I'm from the bank. Mary asked me to bring your banking card today. Mary tried to deceive my father, who had dementia, to open the safe. Initially, Dad listened silently, then suddenly, It's you! How dare you treat my daughter so badly? Dad lunged at Mary out of nowhere. No, help! This is bad. I must inform Mom. Having witnessed everything, my son contacted me and asked Ellie to call the police. This child is lying. He always disliked me. He is making up stories. Mary denied the accusations, calling my son a liar. The one lying is Grandma. Woo! Mary was visibly startled by my son's forcefulness. Old people should be respected, but if someone like Grandma constantly lies and is mean, no one will respect them. My son said this, looking straight at Mary. Finally, acknowledging defeat, Mary looked down, escorted out by the police. Later, Mary was taken to the police station, but wasn't charged. Why did she target that safe? Apparently, she had spent almost all of her inheritance from my father-in-law on hobbies and travels, leaving her with little money. That's why she targeted my father's safe, thinking he wouldn't remember due to his severe memory loss. How shallow! Though Mary wasn't charged, social repercussions followed. The news of Mary's police encounter spread quickly in the neighborhood. Once the spreader of rumors, Mary became the subject, eventually confined to her home, unable to move. Abandoned, even by her younger son's family, she likely faces her last days in a nursing home. Meanwhile, in our home, Robert, thank you. You saved Grandpa and said what I couldn't. I feel so relieved. I expressed my gratitude, and my son bashfully replied, I'll always protect you and Mom. I thought he was still just a child, but tears rolled down my cheeks unknowingly. Mom, are you crying? My daughter peered at my face. It's okay to cry, Mom. If you hold it in, you'll get sick, she said, handing me a strawberry-patterned handkerchief from her pocket. Since my husband passed away, I had decided never to cry in front of my children. But I learned from them that it's okay to cry when you need to, And you don't always have to try so hard. 10 years have passed since then. Mary's dementia has progressed, and she no longer recognizes even her son's family. My father was called to heaven 5 years ago, peacefully passing away in our bed, holding the hands of his grandchildren. I saw a tear trickle from his eye. I place flowers before the portraits of my parents and husband and look out the window. The autumn leaves in the park flutter down, painting the ground red.